They say life can change in an instant. A phone call, a diagnosis, a chance encounter, moments that cleave your existence into before and after. For me, it was a lunchbox. My son's Star Wars lunchbox with the lightsaber zipper pull that Benjamin had insisted on buying, even though he was nearly 30 and worked at a prestigious financial firm in downtown Washington, D.C. I remember the morning. It happened with painful clarity. The kitchen counter gleaming under soft morning light. Clara, my daughter-in-law, humming as she packed Benjamin's lunch with practiced efficiency, the same way she had every weekday morning since they'd moved in with me after their wedding. Her slender fingers arranging turkey on sourdough, adding a sprinkle of something from a small unmarked container she always kept in the back of the spice cabinet. "Emily, don't forget your presentation materials," she called over her shoulder, her voice melodic and warm. "I've put them by the door." That was Clara, always thoughtful, always one step ahead. When Benjamin first brought her home 3 years ago, I thought God had sent me a daughter to fill the emptiness left by my husband's passing. After raising Benjamin, alone, running my perfume company and navigating widowhood, Clara seemed like a blessing, the perfect addition to our family. "Thanks, honey," I replied, gathering my notes for the investor meeting. At 58, I was still passionate about the fragrance line I'd built from scratch. "Benjamin already left?" "Early meeting with clients." Clara nodded, closing the lunchbox with a snap. "He took a granola bar and said he'd grab coffee on the way." I glanced at my watch. I should get going too. The traffic on the Beltway will be miserable. Clara handed me my travel mug of coffee and my handbag. "Here's your lunch too. I made that quinoa salad you liked last week." I smiled gratefully, taking the insulated bag she offered. After my husband died, I'd gotten used to frozen dinners and takeout. Clara's home cooking was a revelation. Another reason I adored her. "You're an angel," I told her, and meant it. If only I'd known that angels can fall, and sometimes they fall so far, they become something else entirely. The Beltway traffic was indeed brutal, but I made it to Wallace Fragrances with 10 minutes to spare before my meeting. My assistant, Lori, waved as I rushed through the reception area. "Good morning, boss. Conference room is set up, and I've got your presentation queued up on the screen." "You're a lifesaver, Lori." "The investors are already here?" "In the lobby." David's showing them around the lab first, giving them the whole science of scent tour. David Carter had been with me almost from the beginning. A former medical researcher who'd pivoted to fragrance chemistry, he'd helped develop our signature scents. Brilliant, meticulous, and one of the few people I trusted implicitly. The meeting went well. By 11:30, we'd secured the funding for our new organic line, and I retreated to the break room, exhausted but pleased. Several employees were scattered around, eating lunch or checking phones. I settled at a corner table, pulling out the insulated bag Clara had packed. Except, it wasn't my usual bag. It was Benjamin's Star Wars lunchbox. "We must have switched bags this morning," I muttered to myself, unzipping it. No matter. Food was food, and I was hungry. I lifted the lid just as David walked in, heading for the coffee machine. He glanced over, then did a double take, his face draining of color so suddenly I thought he might faint. "Emily?" His voice cracked like a whip across the room. "Don't let your son eat that." The break room fell silent. All eyes turned to us. "What?" I asked, confused by his intensity. David strode over, his hands shaking. "Close it. Now." "David, what on earth?" "There's no time to explain," he hissed, pulling the container away from me. "If Benjamin eats this, he'll end up in the hospital." A cold dread washed over me. "What are you talking about?" David's eyes darted around the now silent room. "Not here," he whispered. "My office. Now." I followed him, clutching the lunchbox, my heart pounding. His office was small, crammed with books and lab equipment. He locked the door behind us, then carefully took the container and placed it on a clean sheet of paper on his desk. "Look," he said, pointing to a fine white residue along the rim and edges of the food. "Do you see it?" I leaned closer. Indeed, there was a crystalline substance dusting the sandwich, barely visible except where it had collected in the corners. "What is that?" My voice sounded distant to my own ears. "I can't be certain without testing, but—" David swallowed hard. "Emily, this looks like arsenic." The room seemed to tilt. "Arsenic? Like poison?" He nodded grimly. "I worked with similar compounds during my medical research days. The crystalline structure, the way it's settled, it's distinctive." "That's impossible," I whispered. even as my mind raced back to Benjamin's recent complaints of fatigue, stomach issues, dizziness, symptoms his doctor had attributed to stress and overwork. There must be some mistake. I hope I'm wrong, David said, already pulling on latex gloves from a box on his shelf. But we need to know for sure. I can run some preliminary tests here, but we should also take this to a proper lab. And Emily? He fixed me with a serious stare. You need to call Benjamin right now. Tell him not to eat anything Clara gives him. This is crazy, I protested weakly, but my fingers were already dialing Benjamin's number. When it went to voicemail, panic surged through me. I tried again. Nothing. Try his office, David suggested, carefully taking samples from the lunch. Benjamin's assistant answered. Mrs. Wallace, Benjamin just stepped out for lunch with a client. Would you like me to have him call you when he returns? It's urgent, I said, fighting to keep my voice steady. Please have him call me immediately. It's a family emergency. David looked up from his work, his expression grim. I've done a preliminary test. Emily, it's positive for arsenic. My world shattered into 1,000 sharp-edged pieces. The room spun, and I gripped the edge of David's desk. My son, I whispered. Someone's been poisoning my son. And that someone was Clara, the woman who called me Mom, who kissed Benjamin goodbye each morning, who had become the daughter I never had. In that moment, everything I thought I knew about my family was suddenly, irrevocably rewritten. The loving home I believed we shared was just an elaborate stage, and Clara was performing her most convincing role, the devoted wife who was slowly killing her husband. We need to call the police, David said, reaching for his phone. No, I straightened, a cold clarity washing over me. Not yet. First, I need to know why. And I need evidence no one can dispute. David stared at me, concerned. Emily, this is attempted murder. And she's going to pay for every bit of it, I said, my voice hardening with resolve. But we're going to do this right. Because if I'm going to destroy the woman who tried to take my son from me, I won't leave her any escape. Benjamin met Clara at a charity gala 3 years ago. I remember how his eyes followed her across the ballroom, drawn to her like a compass finding north. She wore emerald green that night. Her dark hair swept up to reveal a graceful neck adorned with a simple pearl pendant. When he introduced us later, her smile was warm, her handshake firm. Mom, this is Clara Thompson. Clara, my mother, Emily Wallace. It's such an honor to meet you, Mrs. Wallace, she'd said. Benjamin speaks of you with such admiration. Your perfume company is legendary. I was charmed immediately. Unlike previous girlfriends who'd seemed intimidated by Benjamin's close relationship with me, Clara embraced it. Within months, she was accompanying us to Sunday dinners, asking about my late husband, showing genuine interest in my business. Family is everything, she'd said once, helping me prepare dinner while Benjamin worked late. I lost mine young. Foster care isn't exactly the warmest environment. My heart had melted at that confession. Here was a young woman who understood loss, who valued the family bonds I held sacred. When Benjamin proposed 6 months later, I was delighted. Now, sitting in David's office with the poisoned lunch between us, those memories turned sinister. Had it all been calculated? Every warm smile, every thoughtful gesture. Was it all part of a plan to infiltrate our lives? Emily, you need to breathe, David said, his hand on my shoulder. We'll figure this out, but you need to stay calm. My phone buzzed. Benjamin. Mom? What's wrong? Stacy said it was an emergency. Where are you? I asked, fighting to keep my voice steady. Just finished lunch with a client. I'm heading back to the office now. What's going on? Relief flooded through me. He was okay for now. Benjamin, I need you to come to my office, right away. Don't go home first, don't call Clara. Just come here. Mom, you're scaring me. Are you all right? Please just trust me. Come now. And don't eat or drink anything else today. What? Why would you? Benjamin, my voice broke. Please. There was a pause. Then, I'm on my way. I ended the call and looked at David. He's coming. What do we do now? I've collected samples to send to a proper lab for confirmation, he said. But Emily, you need to consider what happens next. If Clara is poisoning Benjamin, confronting her directly could be dangerous. I nodded, trying to think clearly despite the hurricane of emotions. We need to understand the motive. Why would she want to hurt him? David hesitated. Money is often the simplest explanation. The thought hit me like a physical blow. My company was worth millions. Benjamin was my only heir, And after our marriage, Clara would have access to that wealth if anything happened to him. She asked about my will once. I said slowly, remembering. About 6 months ago. She framed it as estate planning, wanting to make sure everything was in order for Benjamin's sake. I thought it was practical, responsible even. What did you tell her? The truth. Everything goes to Benjamin. And if Benjamin... I couldn't finish the sentence. If Benjamin dies, who inherits? David pressed gently. Everything would go to his spouse, I whispered. To Clara. A knock at the door made us both jump. David quickly covered the lunch container and samples with a lab cloth before opening it. Benjamin stood there, tall and handsome like his father, but with dark circles under his eyes I hadn't noticed before. Signs of illness I'd attributed to overwork. Mom? His gaze darted between David and me. What's going on? I tried to speak, but my throat closed up. How do you tell your only child that the woman he loves is slowly killing him? David stepped in. Benjamin, please sit down. We've discovered something concerning, and we need you to stay calm. Benjamin entered cautiously, closing the door behind him. This sounds serious. It is, I managed. Benjamin, have you been feeling sick lately? Truthfully. He frowned. You know I have. The doctor says it's stress and maybe a stomach bug that won't quit. Why? David uncovered the lunch container. Is this yours? My lunchbox? Yeah, Clara must have mixed them up this morning. He smiled slightly. She's been making my lunches since we got married. Says it's her way of taking care of me even when we're apart. The tenderness in his voice was unbearable. Benjamin, David said carefully, I've done preliminary tests on the food inside. It contains arsenic. Benjamin stared blankly. What? That's impossible. I wish it were, David replied. But the tests are clear, and more importantly, this isn't the first time, is it? The symptoms. You've been experiencing fatigue, stomach issues, dizziness. They're consistent with chronic arsenic poisoning. Benjamin shook his head violently. No. No way. Clara wouldn't, she couldn't. I reached for his hand. Honey, I know this is impossible to hear, but we need to get you to a hospital right away. And then we need to think about what to do about Clara. His face drained of color, and for a moment I thought he might collapse. Then his expression hardened in a way I'd never seen before. If what you're saying is true, he said slowly, then I want proof. Absolute, undeniable proof. And if Clara is trying to kill me, his voice broke, then steadied. I want to know why. I want to hear her admit it. I nodded, squeezing his hand. We'll get proof, and we'll make her face what she's done. Benjamin looked down at our clasped hands, then back up at me, his eyes suddenly clear and focused. What do we do first? He asked. First, we get you to a hospital, I said firmly. Then we call my lawyer. And then, I took a deep breath. Then we set a trap. As we left David's office, the weight of what lay ahead pressed down on me. My son was being poisoned by the woman he loved. The perfect daughter-in-law I had welcomed into my home was trying to kill him for my money. And now we had to pretend everything was normal while gathering the evidence to destroy her. The hospital corridors seemed endless as we waited for Benjamin's test results. I paced while he sat motionless in a plastic chair, staring at the floor. 3 hours earlier, he'd believed he was fighting a stubborn stomach bug. Now he was facing the possibility that his wife of 2 years was slowly killing him. Mrs. Wallace? A doctor in a white coat approached, clipboard in hand. Dr. Patel was a toxicologist. Benjamin's primary physician had called in after hearing our suspicions. We have the preliminary results. Benjamin stood, swaying slightly. I steadied him with a hand on his arm. Please, just tell us, he said. Dr. Patel's expression was grave. The blood work confirms elevated levels of arsenic in your system, Mr. Wallace. Well above what would occur naturally. Though we'd expected it, hearing the confirmation knocked the air from my lungs. Benjamin's hand found mine, squeezing so hard it hurt. How bad is it? He asked. You're not in immediate danger, Dr. Patel assured us. But continued exposure could lead to serious organ damage. We'll start you on chelation therapy to remove the arsenic from your system, and you'll need to avoid any further exposure. Which means don't eat anything Clara prepares, I said quietly. Benjamin nodded, his face ashen. What do I tell her? When I go home tonight? You're not going home, I interrupted. Not until we figure this out. Dr. Patel looked between us, confused. I should note that arsenic exposure can come from multiple sources. Contaminated water, certain foods, even some occupational exposures. It was in his lunch, I said firmly. Food prepared by his wife. The doctor's eyes widened slightly, but his professional demeanor held. I see. In that case, I'm obligated to notify the authorities. We're already handling that part, I assured him, thinking of James Harrison, my longtime lawyer, who was meeting us at the hospital. But please, doctor, we need your discretion while we gather evidence. Dr. Patel hesitated before nodding reluctantly. I'll delay filing the report for 24 hours, but after that I must follow protocol. Thank you, Benjamin said, his voice hollow. After Dr. Patel left, Benjamin turned to me, his expression lost. What happens now? Before I could answer, James Harrison appeared in the doorway. In his 60s, with steel gray hair and sharp eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses, James had been my lawyer since I started my company. He was also one of my closest friends, having stood by me after my husband's death. Emily, Benjamin, he greeted us solemnly. I came as soon as I could. I quickly filled him in on the doctor's confirmation. James's expression darkened. This is extremely serious. Benjamin, I hate to ask this, but is there any possibility this is a mistake? Could Clara have accidentally used something toxic in your food? Every day? For weeks? Benjamin shook his head. And she's meticulous in the kitchen. Nothing is unlabeled. Nothing is stored improperly. And the arsenic was only in Benjamin's lunch, I added. Not in mine. James nodded grimly. Then we need a strategy. First, Benjamin needs somewhere safe to stay while we investigate. He'll stay with me, I said immediately. Clara thinks he's on an emergency business trip. I've already texted her from his phone. Good, James approved. Next, we need evidence. Emily, do you have cameras in your home? Security cameras outside, but nothing inside. We'll need to change that, he said. Discreetly placed cameras in the kitchen, specifically, and we'll need more samples of food she prepares for Benjamin. Benjamin looked up sharply. You want me to go back? To pretend everything's normal while she's trying to kill me? James's expression was sympathetic but firm. Eventually, yes, but not immediately. First, we gather intelligence. Emily, do you have access to Clara's financial records? Phone records? Computer? I shook my head. She's very private about her phone. Always keeps it with her. What about motive? James asked. Beyond the obvious financial gain if Benjamin dies. Has she been unhappy in the marriage? Are there signs of another relationship? Benjamin flinched. I thought we were happy, he said softly. She always seemed content. People can hide their true feelings, James said gently, especially when there's something to gain. I remembered something then. The will, I said. Clara asked about my will months ago. She wanted to know what would happen to the company if something happened to me and Benjamin. James frowned. And what did you tell her? The truth. Everything goes to Benjamin, and if he's not alive, to his spouse. Your company is worth what now? 40 million? James asked. Close to 50 with the new organic line launching, I admitted. Benjamin stood abruptly. So this is about money? She's been poisoning me for money? It's the most likely motive, James said. But we need proof. Concrete. Irrefutable evidence that she's administering the poison knowingly and intentionally. How do we get that? I asked. Hidden cameras? Careful observation? And James hesitated. A trap. What kind of trap? Benjamin asked. We give her a reason to accelerate her plan. James looked at me. Emily, what if you were to mention making changes to your will? Something that would potentially cut Clara out? Understanding dawned. So she'd panic. Make a mistake. Benjamin paced the small waiting room. This is insane. 2 days ago, my biggest worry was the Henderson account. Now I'm planning how to catch my wife trying to murder me. I know this is overwhelming, James said. But right now, the priority is your safety and gathering evidence. The police won't act without solid proof. And what about Clara? I asked. How do we handle her in the meantime? As normally as possible, James advised. Benjamin is away on business for a few days. That gives us time to set up surveillance and plan our next steps. And when I go back home? Benjamin asked, his voice strained. You'll be protected, James promised. And you won't be consuming anything she prepares. We'll have a plan in place. As we left the hospital, Benjamin suddenly stopped in the parking lot. I still can't believe it, he said, his voice breaking. I loved her, Mom. I still love her. How could I have been so wrong about someone? I wrapped my arms around my son, feeling him tremble against me. Love makes us vulnerable, I said softly. It's not your fault you trusted her. It's her fault she betrayed that. Trust. What if we're wrong? He whispered. What if there's another explanation? I wanted to give him hope, but the evidence was mounting. Then we'll find that out too, I promised. But for now, we need to protect you. As we drove to my condo across town, Benjamin was silent, staring out the window. I knew he was replaying every moment with Clara, searching for signs he might have missed, wondering how the woman he married could hide such darkness. I was doing the same, thinking of all the times Clara had been in my kitchen, preparing meals with those delicate hands that were now instruments of betrayal, how she'd insisted on cooking for us, on caring for Benjamin in that way. We ate together, Benjamin said suddenly. Dinner, at least. She ate the same food. But not lunch, pointed out. And she could have added the poison to your portion after serving herself. He nodded slowly, another hope extinguished. My phone buzzed with a text from Clara. Everything okay with Benjamin's trip? He's not answering my calls. I showed it to Benjamin. What should I say? He took the phone, typing. He's in meetings all day. Some big emergency with the Henderson account. I'll have him call you tonight. As he handed the phone back, our eyes met. I never thought I'd be lying to my wife about my whereabouts because she might be trying to kill me, he said with a bitter laugh. We're going to get through this, I promised him, and she's going to pay for what she's done. But as we arrived at my condo, I wondered how any of us would ever truly recover from this betrayal. Even if we stopped Clara, even if justice was served, the damage was done. Benjamin would never trust in the same way again, and I would never forgive myself for welcoming a monster into our home with open arms. 3 days later, my home had been transformed into a surveillance operation, tiny cameras hidden in the kitchen clock, the living room bookshelf, even the dining room light fixture, all feeding to monitors set up in my downtown condo where Benjamin was staying. Inspector Carter of the DC Police had joined our team after James presented him with the medical evidence and our suspicions. We need to be methodical, Carter advised as we gathered around my dining table. A former military man in his 50s, he had the steady, measured demeanor of someone accustomed to high-stakes situations. The cameras are in place. Now we need to establish a pattern. She's already asking when I'm coming home, Benjamin said, scrolling through messages on his phone. I can't stall much longer without making her suspicious. You'll go home tomorrow, Carter decided, but you won't eat or drink anything she prepares unless we can switch it or test it first. How exactly do I do that? Benjamin asked. We'll have you wear a wire, Carter explained. You'll need excuses ready. You're not hungry, you have an upset stomach, you're meeting clients for lunch. At dinner, you'll need to be creative. Perhaps spill your drink accidentally or claim food tastes off. Benjamin looked uncertain. She'll get suspicious if I keep refusing food. Then we need to move quickly, I said. What? About the trap James suggested? Changing my will? Carter nodded. It's risky but might force her hand. The question is, how do we ensure she finds out about the change without becoming suspicious of our intentions? A conversation she accidentally overhears, James suggested. Between Emily and me, discussing estate planning. I could invite you over for dinner, I mused, to discuss the new foundation I'm establishing. Foundation? Benjamin asked. The fake one we're creating as bait, I explained. I'll tell Clara I'm planning to donate a substantial portion of my estate to a new charitable foundation. James and I will discuss it where she can overhear. If she's poisoning Benjamin for his inheritance, this should accelerate her timeline, Carter agreed. She'll panic at the thought of losing the fortune she's literally killing for. And when she does, Benjamin's voice was tight. We'll be watching, Carter assured him. Every move she makes in that house will be recorded. If she tries to add something to your food, we'll have it on camera. The plan took shape over the next few hours. Benjamin would return home tomorrow evening, claiming his business emergency was resolved. I would invite James for dinner the following night to discuss my new philanthropic plans. Meanwhile, everything Clara did would be monitored. There's one more thing, Carter said as our meeting concluded. Benjamin, if we get the evidence we need, we may want to stage a more dramatic scenario. What kind of scenario? I asked. Carter's expression was grave. A medical emergency. Something that would make Clara believe her plan had succeeded. The implication hung in the air. They wanted Benjamin to fake his own death, or at least a critical medical episode, to catch Clara's reaction. You want me to pretend she killed me? Benjamin said flatly. Only if we have substantial evidence first, Carter emphasized, and only under controlled conditions with medical personnel. Standing by. It would be the final piece of evidence. Her reaction when she believes she's succeeded. Benjamin ran a hand through his hair, his expression tormented. This woman sleeps beside me every night. She tells me she loves me every day. And you're asking me to play dead to see if she celebrates." No one responded. There was nothing to say that could soften the horror of this situation. "I'll do whatever it takes," Benjamin finally said. "But I want this over with. I want the truth. All of it." "We'll get it," Carter promised. The next evening, I watched on the monitor as Benjamin returned home. Clara rushed to embrace him, her face a perfect mask of wifely concern and affection. "I missed you so much," her voice came through the speakers. "Was everything okay with the Henderson account?" "All sorted," Benjamin replied, his voice impressively steady. "Just a misunderstanding about contract terms." "You must be exhausted," Clara said, taking his briefcase. "I made your favorite, beef stroganoff, and there's wine breathing on the counter." "Actually, my stomach's still a bit off," Benjamin said. "I might just have some toast and tea." I saw the flicker of something, annoyance, concern, cross Clara's face before her smile returned. "Of course, honey. Whatever you need." For the next 2 hours, I watched their ordinary domestic routine play out on screen, a nightmarish theater of normalcy. Clara moving gracefully around the kitchen, Benjamin carefully avoiding food she prepared, their conversation pleasant but strained. When Benjamin excused himself to shower, Clara's demeanor changed instantly. Her smile disappeared, replaced by a cold, calculating expression I'd never seen before. She took out her phone, typing rapidly, then moved to the kitchen cabinet. From behind the spice rack, she removed a small, unmarked container. My breath caught as she opened it, revealing a white crystalline substance. With practiced movements, she sprinkled some into Benjamin's tea, stirred it thoroughly, then returned the container to its hiding place. "We've got her," Carter breathed beside me, watching the same feed. "That's it. That's the evidence we needed." I clutched the edge of the table, my knuckles white. "Stop her," I whispered. "He can't go back in there. We need to document the pattern," Carter said gently. "Benjamin knows not to drink it. We've instructed him." Sure enough, when Benjamin returned to the kitchen, he picked up the tea, but didn't drink it. "Actually, I think I'll have water instead," he said. "The mint might upset my stomach." Later, when the house was dark and Clara was asleep, Benjamin carefully collected the tea in a sample container and slipped out to meet Carter, who was waiting in an unmarked car down the street. "Lab analysis confirmed it," Carter reported the next morning. "The tea contained a potentially lethal dose of arsenic. She's escalating." "She knows something's wrong," Benjamin said, his face haggard from a sleepless night. "She kept watching me, asking if I was feeling all right. I think she suspects I'm avoiding her food on purpose." "Then we move forward with the dinner tonight," James decided. "Emily will plant the seed about changing her will. Let's see how Clara reacts." That evening, I hosted dinner at my home with James and Benjamin. Clara prepared an elaborate meal, fussing over every detail. The hidden cameras captured her every move in the kitchen. Twice she added something from her secret container to Benjamin's food, once to his soup, once to his water glass. Each time, we found ways to ensure he didn't consume it. After dinner, James and I moved to the living room, deliberately speaking just loud enough to be overheard by Clara, who was clearing dishes. "I've been thinking about what we discussed, James," I said. "About the foundation." 80% is a significant portion of your estate, Emily," James replied on cue. "Are you certain?" I nodded, solemnly. "I've had a good life, built a successful company. It's time to give back. Benjamin understands." From the kitchen, there was a slight clatter, Clara dropping a spoon. Her face, visible on our hidden camera, had gone pale. "When would you want to finalize this?" James asked. "As soon as possible," I said. "Next week? I'd like to announce it at the company gala." Later that night, after James left. The cameras captured Clara on her phone in the guest bathroom. Door locked. Voice low but urgent. "It's happening sooner than we thought," she whispered to someone. "She's changing her will next week. 80% to some foundation. No, I can't wait any longer. It has to be done now." Benjamin, watching the feed beside me at my condo, closed his eyes in pain. "There it is," Carter said quietly. "Conspiracy to commit murder, on tape." "Who is she talking to?" I demanded. "We'll find out," Carter promised. "But first, we need to finish this. Tomorrow, Benjamin, we put the final phase into motion." Benjamin nodded, his expression resolute despite the tears in his eyes. "Let's end this." The next morning dawned gray and rainy, matching the heaviness in my heart. In a few hours, My son would pretend to collapse from poison administered by his wife. We would pretend he died. And we would watch Clara's reaction, the final, undeniable proof of her guilt. "Are you ready for this?" I asked Benjamin as we gathered in Inspector Carter's office. He looked exhausted, the weight of betrayal etching new lines around his eyes. "As ready as I'll ever be," he replied, his voice hollow. "Let's go through it again." Carter nodded, pulling out a diagram of our house. "Clara left for her yoga class 10 minutes ago. Our team is installing the additional cameras now. At 6:30 p.m., you'll sit down for dinner. You'll actually eat a small portion this time. It will be from the plate we've prepared and switched with what she serves you. After dinner, around 7:15, you'll begin showing symptoms," Dr. Patel continued. He had agreed to assist us, disturbed by the levels of arsenic in Benjamin's system. "Dizziness first, then chest pains. The symptoms need to be dramatic but believable. At 7:20, Emily will call 911, Carter added. "Our officers will respond, disguised as paramedics. They'll declare you unresponsive at the scene and transport you to our staged hospital room." "And Clara?" Benjamin asked. "Emily will text her that you're in critical condition," Carter said. "When she arrives at the hospital, she'll be taken to you. We'll be monitoring everything, her actions, her words, her reactions when she believes she's succeeded." The plan was meticulous, but it hinged on one crucial factor: Clara's reaction when she thought Benjamin was dead. Would she reveal her true intentions, or would she maintain her facade of the grieving wife? "What if she doesn't confess?" I voiced the concern nagging at me. "We already have substantial evidence," Carter assured me. "The poisoned food on camera, her phone conversation about accelerating her timeline. This is just the final piece." The hours crawled by. Benjamin returned home, greeting Clara as if nothing was wrong. I watched from the surveillance feed set up in a van parked down the street, my heart in my throat as my son engaged in mundane conversation with the woman plotting his death. "How was yoga?" he asked, kissing her cheek. "Wonderful," Clara smiled, her face a mask of innocence. "I feel so energized. How about you? Feeling any better today?" "Much better," Benjamin lied smoothly. "Actually, I'm starving." "What's for dinner?" Clara's eyes lit up. "I made your favorite pasta, and I opened that bottle of Cabernet we've been saving." I watched her prepare their plates, adding something from her hidden container to Benjamin's pasta when she thought he wasn't looking. Our team quickly enacted the switch during a moment when Clara left to answer a phone call. Benjamin's portion replaced with identical untainted food. "This is delicious," Benjamin commented as they ate. The cameras captured every angle of the dining room. Clara's attentive gaze as Benjamin consumed what she thought was poisoned pasta. At exactly 7:15, Benjamin set down his fork, his hand going to his temple. "I feel strange," he murmured. Clara looked up, her expression concerned. "What's wrong, honey?" "Dizzy," Benjamin managed, his acting convincing enough to send chills down my spine. "My chest. It hurts." "Maybe you should lie down," Clara suggested, but made no move to help him. Benjamin stood, then staggered, clutching the edge of the table. "Can't breathe," he gasped, then collapsed to the floor with dramatic precision. "Benjamin!" Clara called, rushing to his side. She shook him gently, then more forcefully. "Benjamin, can you hear me?" I entered on cue, having stopped by to drop off some papers. "What happened?" I cried, kneeling beside my son. "He just collapsed," Clara said, her voice trembling. "He said he felt dizzy, then his chest hurt." I reached for my phone, dialing 911. "My son has collapsed," I told the dispatcher, actually one of Carter's officers. "He's not responding. Please, send help immediately." The next 10 minutes unfolded exactly as planned. The paramedics arrived, declaring Benjamin unresponsive. They loaded him onto a stretcher, rushing him to the waiting ambulance. I followed, leaving Clara to gather some things before meeting us at the hospital. At the hospital, actually a disused wing set up for our operation, Benjamin was transferred to a bed, made up to look pale and critically ill with the help of Dr. Patel. Monitors beside him displayed concerning vital signs, though he was perfectly healthy. "Now we wait," Carter said, positioning officers throughout the area. "Emily, text her. Tell her it's not looking good." I sent the message with shaking hands. "Clara, please come quickly. The doctors say Benjamin's organs are failing. They don't know if he'll make it through the night." Her reply came instantly. "On my way." 20 minutes later, Clara rushed into the hospital, her face a perfect picture of wifely distress. "Where is he?" she demanded, clutching my arm. How is he? Critical condition? I said, my voice breaking. The doctors say. I let my voice trail off, unable to complete the sentence. A doctor, actually, another officer, approached us somberly. Mrs. Wallace? Mrs. Wallace the younger? Could I speak with you both? He led us to a private waiting area, where he delivered the news. I'm very sorry. We did everything we could, but the toxins in his system caused catastrophic organ failure. Your husband passed away 5 minutes ago. Clara's hands flew to her mouth, a sob escaping her lips. If I hadn't known better, I would have believed her grief was genuine. No, she whispered. No, it can't be true. Would you like to see him? The doctor asked gently. To say goodbye? Clara nodded, tears streaming down her face. The doctor led us to Benjamin's room, where he lay motionless on the bed, eyes closed, skin made pallid by makeup. I'll give you some privacy, the doctor said, leaving us alone with Benjamin's body. I watched Clara carefully. She stood at the foot of the bed, still crying, her shoulders shaking with apparent grief. Then she moved closer, reaching out to touch Benjamin's hand. I can't believe it, she murmured. After everything, I stepped back, letting her approach him alone. This was the moment of truth. What would she do? What would she say when she believed no one was watching? Clara leaned close to Benjamin's face. Through my tears, I saw her expression change subtly. The grief remained, but something else flickered across her features. Relief? Satisfaction? Finally, she whispered so softly I almost missed it. It's over. Then, thinking I couldn't hear, she added in a barely audible voice, now everything will be mine, just like we planned. Benjamin's eyes snapped open. Clara screamed, stumbling backward, her face transforming from grief to shock to horror in an instant. Surprise, Benjamin said, sitting up. I'm not dead, Clara. The door burst open, Inspector Carter and 2 officers entering swiftly. Clara Thompson Wallace, you're under arrest for the attempted murder of Benjamin Wallace, Carter announced. We have everything on camera, including your confession just now. Clara's face drained of color. Benjamin, she gasped. This is a mistake. I would never. Save it, Carter cut her off. We have you on video adding arsenic to his food multiple times. We have your phone conversations planning his death. And now we have your words at what you thought was his deathbed. As the officers handcuffed her, Clara's composure finally cracked. You don't understand, she cried, looking at me with wild eyes. Your precious son. He has everything. Do you know what it's like to grow up with nothing? To be passed from one foster home to another? I deserved this. I earned it. By killing my son? I asked, my voice ice cold. It wasn't personal, she spat. It was business. $50 million of business. Benjamin sat on the edge of the bed, staring at his wife as if seeing her for the first time. Who were you talking to on the phone? He asked quietly. You said we planned. Who else was involved? Clara's eyes narrowed, a calculating look replacing her panic. Lawyer, she demanded. I'm not saying another word without my lawyer. As the officers led her away, she turned back once more. You'll never prove it. Was anything but food contamination, she hissed. And you'll never find out who else was involved. Never. When the door closed behind her, Benjamin collapsed back onto the bed, his face in his hands. She really would have killed me, he whispered. For money. I sat beside him, wrapping my arm around his shoulders. But she failed, I reminded him. We stopped her. Carter approached, his expression grim but satisfied. We've got her dead to rights on the attempted murder charges. The evidence is overwhelming. But she's right about one thing, I said. Who was she working with? She said, we planned. There's someone else involved. We'll find them, Carter promised. We're tracking her phone records, her financials. Whoever her accomplice is, they'll slip up eventually. As we left the hospital that night, Benjamin was silent, lost in thought. The rain had stopped, leaving the streets gleaming under streetlights. What happens now? He finally asked as we drove home. Now, I said, we heal, and we find the truth, all of it. But as we pulled into my driveway, I couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't over. Clara's arrest was just the beginning. Somewhere out there, her accomplice was still free. And until we found them, none of us was truly safe. The weeks following Clara's arrest passed in a blur of legal meetings, police interviews, and emotional exhaustion. Benjamin moved into my condo permanently, unable to return to the house he'd shared with Clara. Most nights, I'd find him sitting in the dark, staring at nothing, trying to reconcile the woman he loved with the monster who'd tried to kill him. The preliminary hearing is set for next Tuesday, James informed us over coffee one morning. The evidence against Clara is substantial. The prosecutor is confident she'll be denied bail. And her accomplice? I pressed. Any leads? James and Inspector Carter exchanged glances. We've been tracking her communications, Carter said carefully. Phone, records, emails, social media. There's someone she contacted regularly, but always from burner phones or public computers. Very careful. So nothing, Benjamin concluded bitterly. Not nothing, Carter corrected. We know the accomplice exists. We know they were communicating regularly. And we know Clara withdrew $5,000 in cash every month for the past year, money that didn't go into any of her accounts. Payments, I realized. She was paying someone. Carter nodded. The question is, who? And what exactly was their role in all this? Benjamin stood abruptly, pacing the kitchen. It doesn't make sense. Clara didn't know anyone when we met. She was new to DC, had no family because of the foster care system. Who could she possibly be working with? A thought struck me. Suddenly, what if that was a lie? What if she wasn't in foster care? What if her entire background was fabricated? Carter looked intrigued. We ran a background check when this all started. Clara Thompson, age 32, grew up in the Illinois foster system from age 8 after her parents died in a car accident. Aged out at 18, worked various jobs before moving to DC 3 years ago. Did you verify it with the foster system directly? I asked. No, Carter admitted. We checked the digital records. Records can be altered, James pointed out, especially by someone motivated and skilled. Carter made a note. I'll have someone contact the Illinois Department of Children and Family Services directly, see if the physical records match what's in the system. 2 days later, Carter called, with news. You were right, Emily. The physical records don't match the digital ones. According to the paper files, Clara Thompson died in the foster system at age 16. Meningitis. Someone altered the digital records to make it appear she aged out at 18. So who is the woman I married? Benjamin asked, his voice hollow. We're still working on that, Carter said. But we did find something else. Clara's been receiving regular visitors at the detention center, a lawyer named Martin Reynolds. That's not unusual, James noted. She's entitled to legal representation. True, Carter agreed. Except Reynolds isn't a criminal attorney. He specializes in estate law and asset management. And here's the interesting part. He's been visiting her almost daily, sometimes twice a day. That's excessive for legal consultations? James frowned. Exactly, Carter said. We think he might be the conduit to her accomplice. He visits, then immediately makes a call from a payphone 3 blocks from the detention center. Can you tap the payphone? I asked. Working on the warrant now, Carter assured us. But there's something else. Reynolds' firm has another client I think you'll find. Interesting. Margot Blackwell. The name meant nothing to me. Should I know who that is? Probably not, Carter said. But Benjamin might. She's the widow of Richard Blackwell. Benjamin's head snapped up. Blackwell? As in my former boss? Before joining my company's board 2 years ago, Benjamin had worked at Meridian Financial, a prestigious firm in downtown DC. His mentor there, Richard I. Blackwell had died suddenly of a heart attack shortly before Benjamin left. The same, Carter confirmed. Richard Blackwell died 18 months ago, leaving everything to his much younger wife, Margot. They'd been married less than a year. A chill ran through me. How did he die again? Heart attack, according to the death certificate, Carter said. But given what we now know, you think she killed him too, Benjamin said, connecting the dots. You think Margot Blackwell is connected to Clara. It's a theory we're exploring, Carter admitted, especially since Margot came into a substantial fortune after Blackwell's death, and she shares the same attorney as Clara. I need to see her, Benjamin decided suddenly. I met her several times at company functions. If she's involved, I might recognize something now that I missed before. Carter hesitated. That could be dangerous. If she's involved, we'll be careful, I assured him. What if we attend the charity gala at the Meridian Foundation next week? Margot is on the board. She's certain to be there. That could work, Carter conceded. We'd have officers nearby. You could observe her, maybe even engage in conversation if it seems safe. The following week found us dressed in our finest, entering the grand ballroom of the Jefferson Hotel, where the Meridian Foundation held its annual gala. Benjamin was tense beside me, his eyes scanning the crowd. There she is, he murmured. nodding toward a striking woman in a crimson gown. Margot Blackwell was perhaps 40, with dark hair swept into an elegant updo, diamonds glittering at her throat. "She doesn't look like Clara," I observed. "No," Benjamin agreed, "but there's something familiar about her. I just can't place it." We circulated, keeping Margot in our peripheral vision. She appeared completely at ease, laughing with donors, charming the wealthy patrons of the foundation her late husband had established. "I'm going to get closer," Benjamin decided. "Maybe try to speak with her. Be careful," I cautioned. I watched anxiously as my son approached the bar where Margot was ordering champagne. He positioned himself beside her, waiting his turn. I couldn't hear their exchange, but I saw Margot turn, her face registering surprise, then a warm smile as she recognized Benjamin. They chatted for several minutes, Benjamin playing the role of former employee offering condolences for her loss. Margot touched his arm, leaned in closer, laughed at something he said. To anyone watching, it would appear to be a friendly reunion. When Benjamin returned to my side, his expression was troubled. "She asked about Clara," he said quietly. "Mentioned she'd heard about the terrible misunderstanding and hoped it would be resolved soon." "How would she know about Clara's arrest?" I wondered. "It hasn't been in the papers yet." "Exactly," Benjamin said grimly. "And there's something else. When she leaned in to speak, I caught a whiff of her perfume. And it's the same scent Clara used to wear, not just similar, identical. A custom blend Clara told me was created especially for her." My skin prickled with unease. "That can't be coincidence." "No," Benjamin agreed. "And when I mentioned I was working with you now at Wallace Fragrances, she had a strange reaction. Just for a second. A flicker of something like hatred in her eyes before she controlled it. Me? But I've never even met her." Benjamin shook his head, confused. "I don't understand it either. But she's connected to this somehow. I'm sure of it." As we were preparing to leave, an elderly man approached us, his face lighting with recognition as he saw Benjamin. "Young Wallace!" he exclaimed. "How wonderful to see you again." Benjamin smiled, shaking his hand. "Mr. Finch, good to see you too. This is my mother, Emily Wallace." Mr. Finch beamed at me. "The perfume maven herself. A pleasure, madam. I was the CFO at Meridian before retiring last year. Your son was one of our brightest stars. We were sorry to lose him to your company, though I certainly understand keeping business in the family." We chatted pleasantly for a few minutes before Mr. Finch glanced across the room, his expression darkening slightly. "I see Margot is holding court as usual," he muttered. "Never did trust that woman even before poor Richard's death." "Oh?" I prompted carefully. "Why is that?" Mr. Finch leaned closer. "Just something off about her. The way she appeared in Richard's life so suddenly, and those mysterious trips she was always taking." He shook his head. "And now with her sister causing all that trouble." Benjamin and I exchanged glances. "Her sister?" Benjamin asked casually. Yes, Mr. Finch nodded. "I forget her name. Never met her myself, but Richard mentioned Margot had a younger sister she was very close to. Helped her get settled in D.C., I believe." As we drove home that night, Benjamin was silent, processing this new information. "Clara could be Margot's sister," I said, voicing what we were both thinking. "It would explain the same perfume, the connection to Meridian Financial, and potentially a shared modus operandi," Benjamin added grimly. "If Margot killed Richard for his money, then she could have helped Clara try to do the same to you," I finished. "But why? What's the connection to me? Why did Margot look at you with hatred when you mentioned my company?" "I don't know," Benjamin admitted, "but I think it's time we found out exactly who Margot Blackwell really is." The day after the gala, Inspector Carter and James arrived at my condo with grim expressions that told me they'd discovered something significant. Benjamin and I ushered them into the living room, anxious to hear what they'd found. "We got the warrant for the payphone," Carter began without preamble. "Caught Reynolds making a call yesterday. The conversation was brief, but illuminating. He placed a small recorder on the coffee table and pressed play. A man's voice, presumably Reynolds, spoke first. They were at the gala last night. The son approached her. A woman's voice responded, cool and composed. Did he suspect anything? Impossible to say. But the mother was there too. A pause, then the woman again. Emily Wallace. Always in the way. Tell our mutual friend to remain silent. I'll handle everything from here. Carter stopped the recording. The call was to Margot Blackwell's private line. So she is involved, I said, a chill running through me. But what did she mean? I'm always in the way, I've never even met the woman. We may have an answer to that, James said, opening his briefcase. I had my team dig deep into Margot Blackwell's past. The results are disturbing. He spread several documents on the table: birth certificates, news clippings, photographs. Margot Blackwell was born Margaret Davis in 1985, James explained. And Clara, the woman who married Benjamin, her real name is Catherine Davis. They're sisters. Benjamin leaned forward, examining a photograph of two young girls. But why? Why target us specifically? James pulled out another document, an old newspaper clipping. The headline read, "Local entrepreneurs breakthrough. Wallace Fragrances acquires Davis Aromatics." My blood ran cold as memories flooded back. Davis Aromatics, I whispered. Henry Davis's company. You remember it? James asked. Of course. It was one of my first major acquisitions, 25 years ago. Davis had developed some innovative extraction techniques, but the company was failing financially. My husband and I purchased it, integrated the technologies into Wallace Fragrances. I frowned, trying to recall details from so long ago. Henry was difficult during the negotiations, felt the price was too low, but the company was nearly bankrupt. Henry Davis died 6 months after the sale, James said quietly, sliding another clipping across the table. Suicide according to the official report. The headline blurred before my eyes. Disgraced perfumer takes own life, leaves 2 daughters destitute. Oh my God, I breathed. I didn't know. About his death, about his daughters. The acquisition was handled through intermediaries after the initial negotiations. According to our research, Carter continued, Margaret and Catherine Davis were 12 and 8 years old when their father died. With no other family, they entered the foster system. Margaret aged out at 18 but lost track of her younger sister, who was adopted by a family in another state. The sisters reconnected about 5 years ago, James added. And it seems they've been planning their revenge ever since. Revenge, Benjamin repeated, the word hollow. For a business deal that happened 25 years ago? From their perspective, Emily and your late father stole their father's company, driving him to suicide and destroying their family, Carter said. Children often don't understand the complexities of business failures. I closed my eyes, memories washing over me. Henry Davis had been brilliant but erratic. His company mismanaged to the point of collapse. The acquisition had been fair, generous, even given the financial state of Davis Aromatics. But to his young daughters, it must have seemed like theft. Margot, made her move first, Carter continued. She deliberately targeted Richard Blackwell, knowing he was connected to Benjamin through Meridian Financial. She married him, killed him for his money, then helped her sister target Benjamin, I said, the pieces falling into place. But why involve Benjamin at all? If they wanted revenge against me, why not come after me directly? Because killing you would be too merciful, Benjamin said suddenly, a dawning horror in his eyes. They wanted you to suffer, to watch your only son die slowly, to feel helpless to save him, just like they felt when their father died. The cruelty of it stole my breath. To use my son as a weapon against me, to make him fall in love, build a life, only to have it poisoned literally and figuratively. We have enough to bring Margot in for questioning, Carter said. The recorded call, the connection to Clara, the financial ties through Reynolds. It's circumstantial, but no, Benjamin interrupted, a new resolve hardening his features. If we move too soon, we might never get the full confession. I want to hear her admit what she did to Richard Blackwell. I want to hear why she helped her sister try to kill me. What are you suggesting? I asked, alarmed by his tone. We set another trap, Benjamin said. But this time I'm the bait. The plan took shape over the next 48 hours. Benjamin would approach Margot directly, claiming to have discovered something in Clara's belongings that implicated her. He would suggest a meeting, somewhere public enough to be safe, private enough for conversation. It's too dangerous, I protested. If she realizes it's a trap, she won't, Benjamin assured me. She thinks she's untouchable, that's her weakness. Carter arranged for surveillance and backup. Benjamin would wear a wire. The goal was to get Margot to confess to her involvement with Clara, and potentially to Richard Blackwell's murder. Benjamin called Margot from a burner phone, his voice carefully modulated to sound stressed and uncertain. Mrs. Blackwell, it's Benjamin Wallace. I need to speak with you. About Clara, and about the letters I found. There was a pause on the other end. What letters, Benjamin? I'd rather not discuss it over the phone. Could we meet? The botanical gardens, perhaps? Tomorrow at noon? Another pause. I'll be there. The next day, I watched from a surveillance van as Benjamin sat on a bench in a secluded corner of the U.S. Botanical Gardens orchid room. Carter and his team were positioned discreetly throughout the building. I held my breath as Margot appeared, elegant in a tailored navy suit. Her face composed. "Benjamin," she greeted him, taking a seat beside him. "You sounded troubled on the phone." "I found something when I was packing up Clara's things," Benjamin said, his voice strained but controlled. "Letters. Between Clara and someone named Margaret. About me. About my mother's company." Margot's expression remained neutral, but I saw her hands tighten slightly on her purse. "I'm not sure I understand why you're telling me this." "I think you do," Benjamin said quietly. "Margaret is your real name, isn't it? And Clara is really Catherine Davis, your sister." A flicker of something, surprise, respect, wariness, crossed Margot's face. "You've been busy," she observed. "The letters mentioned a plan, a long game." Benjamin leaned closer. "Why, Margot? Why did your sister marry me? Why was she poisoning me?" For a long moment, I thought she wouldn't answer. Then a cold smile curved her lips. "You really have no idea, do you? How your precious mother destroyed our lives? By buying your father's failing company?" Benjamin pressed. "That was business, nothing personal." Margot laughed, a harsh sound devoid of humor. "Business? Is that what she told you? Your mother stole our father's formulas, his techniques, offered him pennies for innovations worth millions. When he threatened to fight the acquisition, to take her to court, your father made sure he'd never work in the industry again, blacklisted him with every supplier, every retailer." "That's not true," Benjamin said, though I could hear the doubt in his voice. "The company was failing because they sabotaged it," Margot hissed, her composure cracking. "Your parents systematically destroyed Davis Aromatics to force my father to sell. Then they took everything, his work, his reputation, his future. He had nothing left. Nothing." I listened, stunned. This wasn't at all how I remembered the acquisition. Davis Aromatics had been in financial trouble before we ever approached them. Henry's innovations were brilliant, but he had overextended, made poor business decisions. The acquisition had been straightforward, hadn't it? "So you decided to destroy my mother by killing me," Benjamin said, his voice steady despite the awful accusation. "Just like you killed Richard Blackwell." Margot's eyes narrowed. "I loved Richard." His heart gave out. A tragic coincidence. Is that what Clara told herself too? That poisoning me was justified because of something my parents supposedly did 25 years ago? "Catherine always was the soft one," Margot said dismissively. She hesitated, moved too slowly. "If it had been me," she trailed off, seeming to realize she'd said too much. "If it had been you what?" Benjamin pressed. "You'd have killed me faster? More efficiently? Like you did with Richard?" "I didn't kill Richard," Margot snapped. "The coronary was natural." "Was it? Because we're exhuming his body," Benjamin bluffed. "Modern toxicology can detect poisons years after death, especially arsenic." Margot's face paled. "You're lying." "Am I? Ask Clara how well her methods worked on me. Ask her what happens when you underestimate your target." Benjamin leaned closer. "It's over, Margot. Clara confessed to everything, including your role in planning it all." It was another bluff. Clara had maintained her silence about her accomplice, but Margot didn't know that. "She wouldn't," Margot whispered, but uncertainty crept into her voice. "She did," Benjamin pressed. "About the plan you two hatched 5 years ago. How you targeted Richard first, married him, then arranged his heart attack with the same poison Clara used on me. How you used his money to establish Clara in D.C., to put her in my path. How you both planned to destroy my mother by taking away the person she loves most, just like you believe she did to you." Margot stood abruptly. "This conversation is over." "It's just beginning," Benjamin said, also rising. "The police are on their way, Margot, with a warrant for your arrest as an accessory to attempted murder." "You have nothing," she hissed, but her eyes darted around looking for exits. "We have Clara's confession. We have the letters. We have your financial connections through Reynolds." Each claim was a calculated bluff, but delivered with such confidence that doubt crept into Margot's expression. "And now we have your words, recorded right here, right now." Inspector Carter stepped out from behind a large palm, 2 officers behind him. "Margaret Davis, also known as Margot Blackwell, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder and accessory to attempted murder." As the officers led Margot away, she turned back to Benjamin, hatred blazing in her eyes. "Your mother destroyed my family," she spat. "She deserves to suffer like we suffered. The difference," Benjamin said quietly, "is that we survived your revenge, and now you'll pay for it." When they were gone, I rushed to Benjamin, embracing him tightly. "It's over," I whispered. "It's finally over." But as I held my son, I couldn't shake Margot's accusations. Had there been something more to the Davis Aromatics acquisition than I remembered? Had my late husband taken steps I hadn't known about? The seeds of doubt had been planted, and I knew I wouldn't rest until I uncovered the whole truth, even if it implicated the man I had loved. The following weeks passed in a blur of legal proceedings and emotional reckonings. Clara and Margot both faced multiple charges: attempted murder, conspiracy, and, in Margot's case, an investigation into Richard Blackwell's death was reopened. The evidence was substantial, their guilt undeniable. But Margot's accusations about the Davis Aromatics acquisition haunted me. While she and her sister had twisted their revenge into something monstrous and unjustifiable, I needed to know if there was any truth to her claims. Had my husband and I, however unintentionally, contributed to Henry Davis's despair? "I need to see the original acquisition files," I told James one morning. "Everything. The negotiations, the contracts, the communications." James frowned. "Emily, that was 25 years ago. And whatever happened, it doesn't justify what those women did to Benjamin." "Of course it doesn't," I agreed. "But I need to know the truth. All of it." The files were in deep storage, boxes of papers from the days before. Everything was digital. James had them delivered to my office, where I spent days sifting through yellowed documents, meeting minutes, and correspondence. At first, everything aligned with my memories. Davis Aromatics had been in financial trouble. Our offer had been fair, the negotiations straightforward. But then I found it, a folder labeled Davis Competitive Strategy, in my late husband's handwriting. Inside were documents that made my blood run cold. Memos outlining a deliberate strategy to pressure Davis Aromatics suppliers. Communications with retailers suggesting they drop Davis products in favor of exclusive deals with Wallace Fragrances. A private investigator's report on Henry Davis's personal financial vulnerabilities. My hands trembled as I read page after page of calculated business maneuvers designed to weaken Davis Aromatics prior to our acquisition offer. My husband had orchestrated a campaign to devalue the company, to force Henry Davis into a corner where he had no choice but to sell, and at a price far below the true value of his innovations. I had known none of this, or had I simply chosen not to see. I had focused on the creative aspects of the business, trusting my husband with the financial and strategic decisions. Had I been willfully blind to his cutthroat tactics? "Mom?" Benjamin's voice pulled me from my thoughts. He stood in the doorway of my office, concern etched on his face. "You've been locked in here for days. What's going on?" I hesitated, then gestured to the chair across from me. "I found something you should see." Together we read through the damning documents. Benjamin's expression grew increasingly troubled as he absorbed the evidence of his father's ruthless business strategy. "Dad did this?" he asked finally, his voice small. "He deliberately destroyed Davis's company to force him to sell?" "It appears so," I admitted. "I didn't know, Benjamin. I swear I didn't know the extent of it. But I should have. I should have paid more attention." Benjamin was silent for a long moment. "It doesn't excuse what they did," he said finally. "Trying to kill me, marrying me under false pretenses. Nothing justifies that." "No," I agreed. "But I understand their anger better now. Their father wasn't just a failed businessman. He was targeted, manipulated, forced into failure by someone with more resources and fewer scruples." "So what do we do with this information?" Benjamin asked. It was a question I'd been wrestling with since discovering the truth. "I don't know that it changes anything legally for Clara and Margot," I said slowly. "But maybe it changes something for us. For me." The next day, I requested permission to visit Clara in the detention center where she awaited trial. Benjamin was against it, but understood my need for closure. The meeting was arranged for a supervised visit, with Inspector Carter observing. Clara appeared in the visitation room, handcuffed, dressed in a beige jumpsuit that drained the color from her face. Her eyes widened in surprise when she saw me. "Emily," she said flatly. "Come to gloat?" "No," I said, taking a seat across from her. "I came to tell you, I know what my husband did to your father." Clara's composure faltered. "What?" I placed copies of some of the documents on the table between us. "He deliberately targeted Davis Aromatics, used underhanded tactics to weaken the company, force your father to sell at a fraction of what his innovations were worth. I didn't know then, but I know now. Clara stared at the papers, then back at me, suspicion in her eyes. Why are you telling me this? Because it was wrong, I said simply. What was done to your father was wrong. It doesn't justify what you and your sister did to Benjamin. Nothing could justify that. But you deserve to know that I recognize the original injustice. Clara's hands, still cuffed, tightened into fists. Do you have any idea what happened after your husband destroyed our father? We lost everything. Our home, our school, each other. The foster system separated us. Kathy, her voice broke. Kathy was only 8. She cried for me every night, but they wouldn't let us stay together. My heart ached for the children they had been, victims of circumstances beyond their control. I'm so sorry for what you and your sister went through, I said sincerely. Children should never have to pay for adults' mistakes. Sorry doesn't change anything, Clara said bitterly. Sorry doesn't give us back our childhood, our father. No, I agreed. It doesn't. Just like your revenge didn't change the past either. It just created more pain. Clara looked away, but not before I caught a flicker of something in her eyes. Regret, perhaps, or simply exhaustion. What do you want from me, Emily? Nothing, I said. But I'm establishing a foundation. The Davis Innovation Fund. It will provide grants to small, independent perfumers and aromatic researchers. People with brilliant ideas but limited resources. People like your father. The kind of support that might have saved Davis Aromatics if it had existed 25 years ago. Clara's head snapped up. Why? Why would you do that? Because it's the right thing to do, I said. Because I can't change what my husband did, but I can try to prevent it from happening to others. And because I want your father's name to be associated with innovation and opportunity, not tragedy. For the first time, Clara seemed at a loss for words. She studied my face, looking for deception or manipulation. Finding none. Her shoulders sagged slightly. Benjamin was the innocent one in all this, she said quietly. I knew that. Even as I was doing what I did, I knew he didn't deserve it. That's why I hesitated. Why I used smaller doses than Margot wanted. I told myself I was just being careful, methodical, but really I couldn't bring myself to hurt him the way she wanted. You loved him, I realized. Not at first, Clara admitted. At first, he was just a target, the way to hurt you. But then, she trailed off, shaking her head. It doesn't matter now. It matters to him, I said. Not enough to change anything, but enough to help him heal eventually. Clara looked down at her cuffed hands. Tell him I'm sorry, she said softly. Not for the plan or for working with Margot. I'm not sorry. We wanted revenge, but I'm sorry it was him. He was a good man, like our father was. I nodded, standing to leave. The foundation will move forward regardless of what happens with your case, I told her. Your father's legacy will be honored, even if it's too late for him to see it. As I turned to go, Clara called after me. Emily, when Margot approached me 5 years ago with this plan, I was angry enough to say yes immediately, but part of me always wondered if there was another way. If maybe we could have just talked to you, told you what your husband had done. I wish you had, I said honestly. So much pain might have been avoided. 6 months later, both cases had been resolved. Clara accepted a plea deal, receiving a 20-year sentence with possibility of parole. After 12 years, Margot went to trial and was convicted not only of conspiracy in Benjamin's case, but also of Richard Blackwell's murder after exhumation confirmed arsenic poisoning. She would spend the rest of her life in prison. The Davis Innovation Fund launched with an initial endowment of $10 million from Wallace Fragrances. The first grants would be awarded the following spring to 5 promising perfumers who might otherwise struggle to bring their visions to market. Benjamin and I stood on the balcony of my downtown condo, watching the sunset paint the Washington, D.C. skyline in shades of gold and crimson. He had healed physically from the arsenic poisoning, though the emotional scars would take longer to fade. I visited Clara today, he said quietly. I turned to him in surprise. You didn't mention you were going. I needed to do it alone, he explained, to ask her some questions, to see if any of it was real. And was it? I asked gently. Benjamin sighed, leaning against the railing. Parts of it. She admitted the marriage was a lie from the beginning, but she said somewhere along the way, her feelings became complicated. That's why she kept reducing the doses, why she fought with Margot about the timeline. She told me she was sorry it was you, I said. That you didn't deserve to be caught in their revenge. No one deserved what happened, Benjamin said. Not me, not Claire and Margot when they were children, not their father. It's just an endless cycle of pain, creating more pain. We were silent for a moment, absorbing the truth of his words. The foundation is a good start, Benjamin said finally. Honoring Henry Davis's legacy, supporting people like him. It won't fix the past, but maybe it helps shape a better future. That's all we can do now, I agreed. Move forward, try to create something good from something terrible. Benjamin took my hand, squeezing it gently. You know what I realized, Mom? Throughout this whole nightmare, the poisoning, the betrayal, the arrests, I never lost faith in you. Even when I discovered what Dad had done, I knew you would try to make it right. Tears pricked my eyes. I'm trying, I whispered. That's what matters, Benjamin said firmly. That we keep trying. That we acknowledge mistakes. That we work to repair damage when we can. As the last rays of sunlight faded from the sky, I leaned my head against my son's shoulder, grateful beyond words that he was alive, that we had survived this ordeal together. The lunchbox that had started it all, that moment of accidental discovery that had saved Benjamin's life, now sat on a shelf in my office, a reminder of how quickly everything can change, how precious life truly is. Mom, Benjamin said softly, I've been thinking about, something Clara said during my visit. About how her father, despite everything, never lost his passion for creating beautiful scents. How even in his darkest moments, he would tell his daughters that fragrances were memories made tangible, emotions captured in molecules. He sounds like he was a remarkable man, I said. He was. And I think I'd like to create a special fragrance for the foundation launch. Something that honors his approach, his philosophy. Would you help me with that? I smiled through my tears. I'd be honored. As night fell over the city, we stood together in comfortable silence. The pain of the past would always be there, but it no longer had the power to define our future. Like the perfumes we created, life was a complex blend of notes, some bitter, some sweet, all necessary for the complete experience. What should we call the fragrance? Benjamin asked. I thought for a moment, then answered, Renaissance? Rebirth? Benjamin nodded, a genuine smile lighting his face for the first time in months. Perfect. A new beginning. And in that moment, I knew that while the truth had nearly destroyed us, it had ultimately set us free.